Almost out of the spotlight, Ukraine was making progress while the world kept its attention focused on the United States' actions against Iran, but without standing still. At the same time, against Russia, Kiev was expanding a strategic offensive, directly targeting the elements that sustain Moscow's ability to continue the war. The scale is evident in the numbers, according to the Ukrainian commander-in-chief, Oleksandr. According to Syrskyi, 105,200 Russian targets were hit in just 28 days of February 2026. That's about 3,650 per day. This volume reveals a strategy increasingly based on the intensive use of drones, reaching virtually all levels of the Russian military structure. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Within this set of targets, one stood out as especially critical: the positions of drone operators. Russia relies heavily on these systems, from long-range models such as the Shahed, employed against Ukrainian infrastructure and urban centers, to FPV and reconnaissance drones, used directly on the front lines to pressure and contain Ukrainian advances. Faced with this situation, Ukraine adjusted its strategy. Instead of trying to destroy all drones, something practically impossible, it began to eliminate those who control them. After all, as Syrskyi himself pointed out, even with a tactical advantage, Kiev faces a growing volume of Russian production, which may already exceed 19,000 FPV drones per day, a huge leap compared to the estimated 5,500 daily drones in 2025. In other words, the drone war is shifting its focus, less on the machines, more on the people behind them. Destroying all of these drones may be impossible, but what Ukraine can do is target the operators. After all, even the best FPV drones still depend on someone controlling them remotely. Eliminating operator positions could take hundreds or even thousands of combat drones out of operation if Ukraine acts precisely. And it's not just positions that Russia is losing. Operators are also being neutralized along with their drones, forcing Moscow to scramble to find replacements. Russia has been trying to gather as many operators as possible. Syrskyi claims that Moscow plans to increase the number of unmanned aerial vehicle (UAV) troops to 101,000 by April 1st. But one of Ukraine's achievements in February was showing these operators, who operate well behind the front lines, that they are not safe. Ukraine can target them and can take their drones out of the war without having to directly destroy them. We can say something similar when we talk about Shahed-type long-range drones. It's easy to assume that these drones are being launched from Russian territory, and many actually are. But one of the great advantages of occupying vast areas of Ukraine is the possibility of launching these drones much closer to their intended targets. A drone launched from occupied Crimea, Luhansk, or Donetsk travels a much shorter distance than one launched from Russia. This means less time and less room for error, something Ukraine needs to address. Eliminating over 4,000 operator positions in a single month directly contributes to this. Until September 2025, Russia was producing around 30,000 Shahed-type attack drones per year, with plans to further increase that volume. In January, Commander Oleksandr Syrskyi stated that Moscow aims to achieve the capacity to launch up to 1,000 drones per day. Something that has not yet happened, possibly also affected by tensions involving Iran, a supplier of essential components. Even so, the numbers remain high. In February alone, Russia launched 5,059 long-range drones, a 13% increase compared to January, precisely during the same period in which Ukraine hit more than 105,000 targets. Faced with this, Kiev adjusted its strategy. Instead of focusing solely on destroying the drones, it began attacking the core of the operation, the operators. The logic is simple. Drones don't function without someone controlling them, and by adding these attacks to more than 100,000 other targets, including equipment, troops, and command centers, Ukraine intensified the continuous attrition of Russian forces, and this pace did not slow down in March. On the contrary, even with increasing pressure, Ukraine continued to advance and expand its attacks in the first days of the month, further deepening the damage to the Russian military infrastructure. A clear example came between March the 1st and 12th, when, according to Robert Brovdy, Ukraine destroyed 19 elements of the Russian air defense network, including S-300 and TOR systems. Overall, what we see is an increasingly focused and systematic campaign to weaken not only Russia's means of attack, but the entire machinery that keeps its war machine running. The so-called SBS birds, as Brovdy describes them, have been successful in several airstrikes throughout March, and he made a point of publicizing some of them in a Telegram post on the 12th. In a nearly 4-minute video, we see the same sequence repeated. The Ukrainian drone identifies the target, reduces the distance, and strikes with precision. It's an effort that's hard to ignore. And more than that, it's highly documented. Many of these attacks are recorded by Ukrainian drones themselves, and in several cases, other drones are sent just to film the burning wreckage, direct proof of the impact on the battlefield. Among the targets hit, one case stands out: the destruction of a TOR system near Berdyansk in the occupied Zaporizhzhia region. Known to NATO as the SA-15 Gauntlet, this short-range system was designed to intercept aircraft, helicopters, and cruise missiles, and theoretically, drones as well. However, the fact that it was destroyed by Ukrainian drones raises doubts about its actual effectiveness, especially considering its estimated cost of between $25 and $27 million. Another significant target was an S-300 system in occupied Luhansk near Borovenki. Also of Soviet origin, it is used to protect troops and strategic installations with capabilities even against some ballistic threats. Nevertheless, this type of system has been repeatedly hit throughout the war, and the March 12 attack is just another in an ongoing campaign to weaken Russian air defenses. And here's the key point. Just like with the drone operators, there's a clear logic behind these attacks. Ukraine isn't just destroying equipment, it's clearing a path. From the start of the war until March 14th, Kyiv claims to have destroyed 1,232 Russian air defense systems. The objective is straightforward: to create safer air corridors that allow for long-range attacks, both in occupied territories and within Russia itself. But there's an important detail, and one that's rarely discussed. Many of these long-range attacks still fail. This shows that despite the advances, this is an evolving battle, where each system destroyed can make the difference between a thwarted attack and a real strategic impact. Euromaidan Press revealed in December that Russian air defenses managed to intercept 90% of Ukrainian drones and missiles. That's a high interception rate, although it still means that about 10% of Ukraine's long-range weapons manage to hit their targets. But Ukraine looks at this and sees a huge amount of money and drones being wasted, resources that could reach their targets if the Russian air defense network were weakened. Hence these attacks. What Ukraine wants to do in 2026 is create a scenario in which a larger proportion of its long-range attacks are successful. This directly harms Russian forces on the front lines, since Ukraine's strategic targets include things like the operator positions we mentioned, as well as oil, storage depots, fuel, and many other elements that keep Putin's army functioning. The fewer of these essential parts a military machine possesses, the weaker it becomes on the battlefield. The ongoing problems with Russian air defenses must also be considered. The sanctions are severely limiting Russia's ability to produce and replace air defense systems due to a lack of essential components and supply chain failures. This forces the Kremlin to choose between protecting its territory or reinforcing the front line, while the replacement of equipment destroyed by Ukraine is proceeding slowly. With this, Ukraine gains an advantage by opening gaps in Russian air defenses, facilitating new attacks. In March, in addition to destroying systems such as the S-300, it also hit ammunition depots, repair units, and a fuel train. These attacks compromise the mobility and maintenance of Russian forces, making vehicles, artillery, and air defenses easier targets. If it cannot completely prevent the movement of this equipment, Ukraine at least forces an indirect degradation that significantly reduces its efficiency and reliability on the battlefield. Interestingly, in this attack on the train in Luhansk, Ukraine used a strategy similar to that of Russia itself. Both sides fully understand the importance of logistics, especially the central role of railways. Around 90% of Russian cargo is transported by rail, and this applies to both the civilian and military sectors. If Russian troops need fuel and lubricants, they need to arrive by train. Ukraine also relies heavily on railways, even though it is more technologically advanced in several areas, and Putin has been exploiting this to the fullest. Waging war, whether attacking or defending, requires fuel. Ammunition and equipment need to be transported to soldiers, and using highways is often impractical due to cost and vulnerability. Heavy trucks move slowly and become easy targets. Russia has been taking advantage of this at least since the beginning of March. According to DW, the Ukrainian state railway company, Ukrzaliznytsia, reported on March 12 that bridges, tracks, and trains were being attacked with the aim of disrupting Ukraine's land logistics. On the same day, Ukraine responded in kind. Their drones destroyed a train carrying fuel and lubricants in occupied territory, showing Putin that logistics warfare is a two-way game. And somehow, the situation is getting even worse for Russia. With the heart of its drone operation compromised and its logistics infrastructure hit, Ukraine has also dealt a significant blow to Russia's missile capabilities. We've mentioned this before, and there was a very specific reason for Ukraine to target this sector, besides it being a key target. In early March, Russia launched yet another combined missile and drone attack against Kharkiv. This, in itself, is nothing new, as airstrikes against Ukrainian cities have become commonplace in Putin's war. But what drew attention in this attack was the use of a new type of missile. Called the Izdalia-30, it has a range of about 500 kilometers and can carry approximately 800 kilograms of explosive payload. According to United 24 media, Russia began launching these missiles from Su-34 fighter jets from within its own territory, making it an extremely dangerous weapon. And Ukraine reacted. On March 10th, it used its own missiles to attack a Kremlin microelectronics factory located in the Bryansk region, near the border. The highlight was the use of British Storm Shadow missiles, with 7 units launched against the main production facility. The extent of the damage, visible in images after the attack, indicates that the facility was virtually destroyed. As a result, Russia loses the ability to produce more Izdalia-30 missiles, since the essential electronic components were manufactured precisely in this complex targeted by Ukraine. Once again, it's a case of fighting fire with fire, and this demonstrates how crucial it is that Western countries continue to allow Ukraine to use the missiles they supply to hit targets inside Russia. This attack showed that Ukraine struck at the brain of the Russian missile strategy. Heart, structure, and brain, all compromised. This is extremely significant for Ukraine, considering the scale of the Russian attacks. Colonel Yuri Ikhnat, head of the communications department of the Ukrainian Air Force, highlighted this dimension on March 9th. According to him, the enemy has been using more ballistic missiles in 2025-2026. There have been massive attacks, about 12.5 during the winter, and a significant increase in the use of missiles with ballistic trajectories is observed. Indeed, Ukraine faced a record barrage of Russian missiles in February. There were 288 launches, an average of more than 10 per day. Russia had not used this volume since 2023, according to United 24 media. This indicates that Moscow intended to increasingly rely on its main airborne missiles throughout 2026. At least that was the plan. With the Kremlin installation destroyed, at least one of Russia's main missiles, and precisely the newest one, has its production halted. Adding this to the loss of more than 105,000 targets in February, including more than 4,000 operator positions, the destruction of air defense systems, the loss of a fuel and lubricant train, and several other smaller attacks discussed here, we have an extremely successful month and a half for Ukraine. Keep your eyes on Iran, Ukraine seems to be saying to the world. Meanwhile, we will continue to destroy the vital lines of the Russian war machine. And there is no doubt, the Ukrainian attacks are likely to become even deeper and more intense throughout 2026. And how do we know this? Because Ukraine is completely changing the rules of airstrikes, developing something so innovative that it hasn't been seen before. And if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next updates. Thanks for watching.